An excerpt from I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. And what we'll do is, as I'm reading this, I'll kind of pause and kind of sum up some things in between here. What surprised me most about seeing my sister dead is the lingering smirk on her face. Her pale lips are turned up ever so slightly, and someone has filled in her patchy eyebrows with a black pencil. The top half of her face is angry, like she's ready to stab someone, and the bottom half is almost smug. This is not the Olga I knew. Olga was as meek and fragile as a baby bird. I wanted her to wear the pretty purple dress that didn't hide her body like all her other outfits, but Ama chose the bright yellow one with the flowers. The pink flowers I've always hated. It was so unstylish, so classically Olga. It made her either 4 or 80 years old. I could never decide which. Her hair is just as bad as the dress, tight, crunchy curls that remind me of a rich lady's poodle. How cruel to let her look like that. The bruises and gashes on her cheeks are masked with thick coats of cheap foundation, making her face look haggard, even though was only 22. Don't they pump your body full of strange chemicals to prevent your skin from stretching and puckering? To keep your face from resembling a rubber mask? Where did they find this mortician? The flea market? So, right here in these two first paragraphs, we have a sister looking upon her dead sister. We're assuming at a funeral, right? Um, and we already feel the anger radiating off of this character because she's looking at her sister and she just hates the way that her sister looks in this casket. She doesn't like the outfit. She doesn't like what they've done to her face. She doesn't like anything that's going on. And so we see her upset over this. My poor older sister had a special talent for making herself less attractive. She was skinny and had an okay body, but she always managed to make it look like a sack of potatoes. Her face was pale and plain, never a single drop of makeup. What a waste. I'm no fashion icon, far from it, but I do feel strongly against dressing like the elderly. Now she's doing it from beyond the grave, but this time it's not even her fault. Olga never looked or acted like a normal 22-year-old. It made me mad sometimes. Here she was, a grown ass woman, and all she did was go to work, sit at home with our parents, and take one class each semester at the local community college. Every once in a while, she'd go shopping with Amma or to the movies with her best friend Angie to watch terrible romantic comedies about clumsy but adorable blonde women who fall in love with architects in the streets of New York City. What kind of life is that? She didn't want more? Didn't she ever want to go out and grab World by the balls? Ever since I could pick up a pen, I've wanted to be a famous writer. I want to be so successful that people stop me in the street and ask, "Oh my God, are you Julia Reyes, the best writer who has ever graced this earth?" All I know is that I'm going to pack my bags when I graduate and say, "Peace out, motherfuckers." But not Olga. Saint Olga. The perfect Mexican daughter. Sometimes I wanted to scream at her until something switched on in her brain. But the only time I ever asked her why she didn't move out or go to a real college, she told me to leave her alone in a voice so weak and brittle, I never wanted to ask her again. Now, I'll never know what Olga would have become. Maybe she would have surprised us all. All right, so I'm going to pause here. In these three paragraphs, we see the narrator, right, Julia, is comparing herself to, well, not really comparing herself, but she's kind of describing how her sister was, how her sister was weak. She did what she was told. She was never adventurous. And then we get a little bit of a comparison when she starts mentioning what she wants, and she starts talking about, she wants to be famous. She wants to go out and conquer the world. She wants to make sure that people know who she is. And she doesn't understand how her sister could have been this weak, fragile, follow the rules, and never step out of line kind of person. Here I am thinking all of these horrible thoughts about my dead sister. It's easier to be pissed, though. If I stop being angry, I'm afraid I'll fall apart until I'm just a warm mound of flesh on the floor. While I stare at my chewed up nails and sink deeper into this floppy green couch, I hear Ama wailing. She really throws her body into it too. Mija, Mija, she screams as she practically climbs inside the casket. Appa doesn't even try to pull her off. I can't blame him because when he tried to calm her down a few hours ago, Amma kicked and flailed her arms until she gave him a black eye. I guess he's gonna leave her alone for now. She'll tire herself out eventually. I've seen babies do that. Appa has been sitting in the back of the room all day, refusing to speak to anyone, staring off into nothing, like he always does. Sometimes I think I see his dark mustache quivering, but his eyes stay dry and clear as glass. I want to hug Amma and tell her it's going to be okay, even though it's not and never will be. But I feel almost paralyzed, like I'm underwater and made of lead. When I open my mouth, nothing comes out. Besides, Amma and I haven't had that kind of relationship since I was little. We don't hug and say I love you like on TV shows about boring white families who live in two-story houses and talk about their feelings. She and Olga were practically best friends, and I was the odd daughter out. We've been bickering, drifting away from each other for years. I spent so much of my life trying to avoid Amma because we always end up arguing over stupid, petty things. We once fought about an egg yolk, for instance. True story. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and explain a little bit more. Here we see, the sister realizing that she's saying all these horrible things about her dead sister, right? She's talking bad about her dead sister, but she's rationalizing it with, I'm doing this because this is how I stay strong. This is how I keep myself from breaking down and not being able to continue. And then she starts explaining, her parents and their reactions to what's going on and how her mother is just breaking by this whole event, but her father seems to be very, closing in on himself and not wanting to talk to anyone, refusing to talk to anyone. And she talks about how, we see how her relationship with her mother is not a great one. She tells us that they've been drifting apart, that they've been bickering and arguing, and that her father just kind of avoids all of that by staying to himself, by letting her mother do what she wants in her time of grief. Sorry. All right, last 3 paragraphs. Appa and I are the only ones in my family who haven't cried. He just hangs his head and remains silent as a stone. Maybe something is wrong with us. Maybe we're messed up beyond crying. Though my eyes haven't produced tears, I've felt the grief burrow in every cell of my body. There are moments that feel like I might suffocate, as if all my insides are tied into a tight little ball. I haven't taken a crap in almost 4 days, but I'm not about to tell Amma in the state that she's in. I'll just let it build until I explode like a piñata. Amma has always been prettier than Olga, even now, with her swollen eyes and splotchy skin, which is not the way it's supposed to be. Her name is more graceful too, Amparo Montenegro Reyes. Mothers are not supposed to be more beautiful than their daughters, and daughters are not supposed to die before their mothers. But Amma is more attractive than most people. She hardly has any wrinkles and these big round eyes that always look sad and wounded. Her long hair is thick and dark, and her body is still slim, unlike the other moms in the neighborhood who are shaped like upside down pears. Every time I walk down the street with Amma, guys whistle and honk, which makes me wish I carried a slingshot. Amma is rubbing Olga's face and crying softly now. This won't last, though. She's always quiet for a few minutes, then all of a sudden lets out a moan that makes your soul turn inside out. Now Tia Kuka is rubbing her back and telling her that Olga is with Jesus, that she can finally be in peace. All right, guys, so what you're going to do now is you're going to go ahead and go back to your Google Doc, not Google Doc, your Word document that you downloaded, and you're going to answer these questions here about, the power within the story itself. So what perception of power do we see? Do we see a struggle of power? Is it a race power, economic, leader? Is it, knowing their self-worth? Is it a justice or fairness type of power? Explain that here in the box. What elements of the text reflect the dominant power or the subordinate power? Who has the power and who doesn't? And how do you know? Give us text evidence here. Having power or not having power, how does that make the characters act? Does the fact that they do not have power or that they have power make them act a certain way? Kind of think about Julia and how she's responding to her sister's behavior before she died. And then what themes do we learn from looking through the text in this lens? What lessons do we learn? What life advice do we get from this particular story itself? Make sure you answer all the questions and then email it to the teacher.